What is up, Alabama fans? Producer Chris here to give you a post-game reaction to Alabama versus Middle Tennessee last night. Normally, I am behind the camera on the computer, but because we're not in the studio this weekend, I'm going to bring you this post-game recap to Alabama versus Middle Tennessee. Before we get into it, I want to know from you what you guys ate at your tailgates and or football parties. Last night I made chicken wings. They were really, really good. Threw them in the oven for a little while. Took them off, threw them on the grill. Oh my God, they were amazing. So I want to know from you. Let me know in the comments. What'd you guys have? I remember last year when I was in Tuscaloosa, I would make a buffalo chicken dip. That's always been probably one of my favorite football tailgate foods. So let me know in the comment section what you guys had. All right, first off, I want to talk about some injuries that we saw last night during the game. Nick Saban really didn't give us too much during his press conference. The only two guys he mentioned were Malachi Moore and Jalen Key. Didn't tell us what they were at all. Didn't even allude to, normally he says, this guy's got a foot. Doesn't at least gives us a body part. Didn't even give us a body part last night. And the biggest name that I wanted to mention as well was Kool-Aid McKinstry. We saw him go to the tent at one point. Nick Saban didn't mention him at all during that injury report, if you want to call it that. And so, he didn't mention Kool-Aid McKinstry at all last night. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that Kool-Aid for now is okay. Maybe he got banged up just a little bit. Probably, I think he went after that punt return, if I'm not mistaken. Biggest story of the night, Jalen Milroe makes the start for the Crimson Tide. If you hit that on BetUS a couple months ago, it was at like plus 300 or something like that. So you hit big if that was the case. I mean, let's just start with the very first drive. He looked cool, calm, collected. The bad snap by Seth McLaughlin, it slipped out of his hand, rolled all the way back to the quarterback, didn't bother Jalen at all. Picked it up, he was looking downfield to make a play. Wasn't much going on, so he took it himself. And I had written in my game notes in all caps, Jalen Milroe is insane, because that's what we knew he was. We knew he was a guy that's gonna run a lot this season, to be quite frank. Another thing we heard a lot, all the negatives around Jalen Milroe, was everybody said he can't push the ball downfield and he's a turnover machine. Well, guess what he did last night? No turnovers, no interceptions, no fumbles for Jalen Milroe. Three passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns. Becomes the first quarterback in Alabama history to record that stat line for the Crimson Tide. He had 48 yards rushing on 7 attempts. Now, some of that, is like sack numbers taking that down just a little bit. But he finished throwing the ball 13 for 18 with 194 yards. Against Middle Tennessee, I understand that we'll walk back just a little bit. There's going to be better competition here in the future. But I was very impressed with the way Jalen Milroe just looked in the pocket. Like I said, he looked cool, calm, collected. Things didn't look like they were coming too fast for him. He was very decisive making his throws. And what they kept mentioning on the broadcast itself was his footwork looked a whole lot better. Helped him be more accurate throwing the football. And he was pretty accurate last night. I mean, 13 for 18 is really good. That's, 72% completion percentage. Now, another thing we saw, quarterback 2 was Tyler Buchner. That shocked me. We saw the reports on Friday night from Chris Lowe saying it was going to be Tyler Buchner. And it surprised me because I thought Ty Simpson was going to progress a whole lot faster than he is, apparently. I understand both guys are older than him, but I still thought Ty Simpson being in this system a whole extra year from Tyler Buchner was going to help him, at least, like, he's got the arm talent, he can run. We saw both of those guys last night also had rushing touchdowns. So the quarterbacks in total had 4 rushing touchdowns last night. So I want to hear from you guys. What is your confidence in the quarterbacks? Rate it 1 to 10 in the comments section right now. That's going to be your pinned comment is to rate the quarterbacks, mainly Jalen Milroe. I think he did enough tonight to be able to warrant the start versus Texas next week, barring something wild happening this week. The next thing I want to talk about is the running backs. The running backs looked very, very good last night, along with that offensive line. Now, obviously, we saw the two, bad snaps from Seth McLaughlin. That's something that's, gonna get fixed. It will get fixed. It needs to get fixed. We can't have that through the season. And I have confidence in Seth McLaughlin that he will get that fixed. Caden Proctor started at left tackle. I thought he was going to be the number 2 guy, at least to start. I thought he'd win it eventually, whether that be in game 1 or game 2 against Texas coming up. But either way, Caden Proctor did start the game at left tackle last night with Tyler Booker at left guard beside him. When we did that roster projection video, that was one of the things we gave, kind of 2 different offensive linemen depth charts that we thought were going to be possible. And that second one that we showed ended up being the one that they went with. And overall, I didn't really see a whole lot of negatives towards the offensive line. 2 sacks were given up last night. And if you actually look at the play, it was Jam Miller on the first one. And then I believe Roydell Williams on the second one just got blown up in pass pro. I mean, they were saying on the broadcast, Jalen's probably got to check out of that play or shift the protection up front. But both running backs attempted to make the block. They just got blown up. You make the block, he doesn't get sacked. So, you can say, oh, he probably should have shifted, the protection up front. But all in all, everybody got blocked. It was, the running backs just got blown up on those plays. They couldn't hold their block. So I wouldn't put that much on Jalen as I would on the 2 running backs that got blown up on those plays to cause the sacks. And while we're on the running backs, I'll go ahead and mention those guys. Jace McClellan into the game, 39 yards on 10 carries. Doesn't look like a whole lot, but they fed that man the rock in the first quarter. Roydell Williams right behind him, 7 carries for 36 yards. Like I said, Jalen Milroe led the Tide in rushing with 48 yards. But overall, pretty positive. I really, really liked the rotation. It kind of went exactly how I thought it was going to go. Jace, Roydell, we saw Jam Miller go in there right before they put Justice Haynes in there. That's kind of how I thought it was going to go. Really like that we got to see Richard Young last night, too. He's another guy that's kind of been overlooked in this running back room because he came in late after the rest of the freshmen. But he also looked really nice. The next position I want to talk about is the wide receivers. This was the biggest question mark that I think most of us had going into this 2023 season was how are the wide receivers going to progress from last year? Because to be quite frank, last year was abysmal. Bryce had who to go to. Who was Bryce's guy to go to last year? There wasn't really one. Ja'Cory Brooks? I mean, he was kind of that guy in crunch time sometimes, but there wasn't like a guy that we went to a lot. And last night, Isaiah Bond impressed, and he was a guy that we were harping on. He was dropping balls last year, and he was dropping balls in the spring. We saw in that video posted by a fan from Fan Day where he dropped that long, deep ball, and he had another drop as well. But last night looked very, very nice. Had 5 catches for 76 yards and a touchdown. Had that long ball from Jalen Milroe, 47 yards to the end zone. Jermaine Burton, also 3 catches for 62 yards. He had the 48-yard touchdown pass. So what does that say to the people that say Jalen Milroe can't throw the ball downfield, can't stretch the field? Well, there's 2 big plays right there. And Amari Niblack, I believe it was like a 29-yard touchdown pass. Not necessarily a long ball, but another ball over 20 yards, 25 yards. Love to see that. It's going to put a real damper in the people that think that Jalen Milroe cannot throw the ball downfield. Overall, we saw Malik Benson 1 catch for 5 yards. Don't worry about that. He's going to blow up at some point. It just depends when. It's not if, it's when. When is Malik Benson going to go off for that game? I feel it in my heart wholeheartedly. He's going to go crazy for the Crimson Tide and probably end up being wide receiver 1 eventually for this team. Now, one more odd thing that I kind of want to mention is Nick Saban during his press conference was asked about Ja'Cory Brooks. Why was Ja'Cory Brooks not in the game in the first half? Did he get beat out for a position? What was the deal there? Because we saw Prentice not start the game, but he came in and got reps in the first half. Why wasn't Ja'Cory Brooks getting reps in the first half? Now, Nick Saban kind of commented on it. He said, the guy sat out the first half. Well, we know that, Coach. We know that. Why? Why didn't he sit out the first half? Well, I'm not going to tell you. Okay, I guess that's cool, whatever. If it's one of those team things where the guy showed up late to a meeting or something like that, I don't think it's that big a deal. He still played in the game, most of the second half. The way the defense looked, but mainly the secondary as a whole, Tyrion Arnold, he's the guy last year, true freshman last year, got absolutely torched by Tennessee, ended up losing his job to Ricks, and then Ricks got hurt, so he got the job back. He got challenged the first play of the game last night. And I think for him, that was big because he came up big pass breakup right there. It's the only one recorded on the stat sheet, but I think there probably were a couple more throughout the night for a couple of guys. But really nice. I loved what I saw from Tyrion Arnold. I wrote in my game notes as well while I was watching the game. The secondary kind of seemed to be, have some communication issues at times. Not the whole time. Just a couple of times there was like a weird shift and one guy would go with another guy. That's what we saw on the one and only touchdown for Middle Tennessee. You saw Earl Little, obviously a 2 guy tonight. There was a cross and he went with his guy instead of passing him off, and it left the other guy crossing wide open. And he was just too late getting back. So that was the little miscommunications that I saw. But as I was actually writing it down during the game, Jalen Key makes an interception. And that's something that you love to see. A transfer coming in his first game for the Crimson Tide, making an impact like that. That's just really great to see. Now, let's talk about the guy. Let's talk about the guy right now. Caleb Downs looked nice. Not nice, nice. I loved watching Caleb Downs last night. It's just so refreshing seeing a safety that'll come downhill and just lay the wood to a running back. I mean, when you're playing 15, 20 yards off the ball on defense and then you're making plays at the line of scrimmage, that's super impressive. And that's not something that happened once or twice. That's something that was happening all night long. And I was really, really impressed by the way he played. And I know it's Middle Tennessee and we're going to keep saying that over and over again. But I think you can find the positives in those things as we progress to a tougher schedule and harder competition, especially Texas next week. So right now, I want you guys to get in the comment section. I want you to grade Caleb Downs' performance last night in his first game with the Alabama Crimson Tide. I want you to grade it. A, B, C, D, or F. I know it's probably most of them are going to be A's or B's. I'll go ahead and give him an A-. There wasn't much that I saw during the live game that would make me give him a B, to be quite honest with you. He didn't do much wrong. I'm sure there was some things in there that can be fixed. But he looked great for me. So I'm going to give him an A. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. Grade Caleb Downs' performance A, B, C, D, or F. And guys, before I get out of here, please make sure you subscribe to the Alabama Football Report. I'm a huge Alabama fan. I graduated from Alabama last year. So this channel in particular is very, very important to me. I want to grow it for you guys. I love doing what I do, and I love this channel. So make sure you hit that subscribe button at Roll Tide TV.